The Goat House is back with notable NFL players that will get cut this offseason, in my opinion. Some big names on this list, and stay tuned for the next video, part 2. We're talking about some guys that could get cut, some surprising names. Let's break down these cut candidates. I have 18 notable NFL players on this list that I think will get cut, starting with a Falcons player, defensive tackle David Onyemata. Interesting one because it was a big signing for them, free agency signing just a couple years ago. So good player, tough to let him go, but he's 32, going on 33. This staff obviously was new last year. They don't have ties to him. They didn't bring him in. They drafted Rook Orororo really early last year, so maybe he steps up. They have other options as well. They're in need of cap space going into free agency, so they're in need of clearing cap space. So I'd say they cut Onyemata. They clear $8.1 million in savings, so they have that much extra cap space to work with. Makes a lot of sense to me. Falcons actually got 2 players on this list. Their kicker once was a star kicker, Younghoe Koo, who has been struggling recently. He didn't even finish the year out as the kicker for them, so I'd imagine he's declined. He might be washed up, even though he was so good just a couple years ago. But they move on from him, find a different kicker, and they clear $3 million. Again, the Falcons are one of those teams that they got to do a little bit of digging. They got to clear a little bit. It'll be very solvable, but they'll do that. Anybody they can cut to clear space, I think they will do it. So here's another $3 million for Atlanta. Here's a big name, Tyler Lockett, longtime Seattle Seahawks wide receiver. I believe Seattle cuts him. There is a chance that they rework a deal to keep him there because he feels like a lifelong Seattle Seahawks player at this point, but $17 million, nobody's going to trade for him and pay $17 million, even though he's very, very solid still. No one's going to do that. So Seahawks are in need of cap space. They want to do a little bit more work here in the offseason. You cut him, boom, you got $17 million more. I mean, that's multiple players or one pretty damn solid player in free agency, I should say, where that money could go towards. So that's a big name. But watch for him to be cut. Could land anywhere, but just speculation at this point. Pete Carroll's over there with the Raiders. That could be interesting. Another Seahawk, Roy Robertson Harris, who was with the Jaguars up until the trade deadline. The Seahawks added him. It felt like a rental. He wasn't playing a ton down the stretch, 20% or so snaps. They cut him. They clear $6.6 million. Makes a lot of sense. Again, Seahawks are one of those teams that could use the space. So any easy way they can do it like this to get $6.6 million, pretty solid. They'll definitely jump on that. Not a massive name here, but a solid defensive end that should be a rotational guy in DeMarcus Walker. The Bears don't absolutely need the cap space. They have plenty, so they're not desperate to do things like this. But new defensive coordinator coming in, Dennis Allen. They can clear $5.2 million. They have young guy, like say Austin Booker, a young player on their roster that could step up and be that high-end rotational guy. And then they find another starter alongside Montez Sweat off the edge. That makes sense to me. So 30 years old, move on from Walker, clear a little bit of space here. Steelers have a couple, starting with Larry Ogunjobi, $7 million cleared if they move on from him. What's the situation with Hayward? How much longer is he going to be around for? They have a future stud in Keanu Benton. They don't really need Ogunjobi anymore. He's not that player he once was. $7 million is a good amount of cap space for them to clear, and then look for that quarterback maybe that they want to re-sign, or a new one that they want to add, and then touch up some other spots as well. Makes sense. And then Preston Smith, who they added from Green Bay at the trade deadline. It felt like a rental. It felt like the Steelers were awesome at that time. Like, there's an extra guy to help us on that push, throughout the playoffs, really. And obviously things didn't go great as the rest of the year went on. They didn't really plan for that. But yeah, it felt like a rental, a trade in cut at the end of the year. And that's what $13.4 million, clear that. They probably can find another rotational pass rusher for a lot cheaper that they can make into something better than what Preston Smith is right now. So $13.4 million. It's a pretty good amount of money there for them to clear. Here's another big name to watch. The Packers corner, a star corner when healthy, Jair Alexander, who I believe they will release, and they will designate him as a post-June 1st cut, and that will free more space. But you have to wait till after June 1st to actually get the full savings, which would be $17 million, but he's a free agent when they decide to make this move, so long before June 1st. Otherwise, it's probably not worth it. You would save just over $6 million. Is that worth it? You would rather keep Alexander, but He has major injury concerns right now. He just cannot stay healthy for a full season. Is he as good as he once was? Or they switched defensive coordinators a year ago? They just might go that younger route at the position. They have a bit of cap space. This would put them at that position to have a ton of cap space to really go to work to make this a Super Bowl roster, because I don't think it's too far off here. So that is a huge name to watch this offseason. Another big name I expect to get released is Von Miller, the Bills pass rusher. And will they make him just a normal cut, or will they designate him as a post-June 1st move? You see the difference in cap savings there. It's pretty significant, but the Buffalo Bills could use some cap space, right? They got to clear some to be able to make some moves. So do they just want, hey, let's do away with this. Let's get our $8.4 million right now in cap, extra cap here to be able to make moves in free agency. I could definitely see them doing that, but I expect the Buffalo Bills to move on from Von Miller this offseason. Another solid pass rusher that could be cut, I expect to be cut, Bengals pass rusher Sam Hubbard, who definitely was on a down year this year, definitely declined, showed signs of declining, but still solid, a smart pass rusher. The Bengals would clear $9.5 million by moving on from him. Are they desperate for that space? It might not seem like it at first, but if they want to bring T. Higgins back and be able to afford him long-term along with Jamar Chase, then maybe they move on from a guy like this. But yeah, Jamar Chase is going to be affecting their future cap. T. Higgins would be right now and the future, and they want to be able to make other moves. That defense pretty much needs to be revamped, not in every single spot, but they bring in a new defensive coordinator, Al Golden. So do they make some changes like this? I would expect so. I'm expecting the Lions to move on from DJ Reader, who's a very solid defensive tackle, very solid nose tackle, and maybe he's declined a little bit, still very solid, but does have the durability concerns as well. So can the Lions trust him to stay healthy? And is he the guy they want in there long-term next to Aleem McNeil? I do not think so. So they could move on from him. Free $8 million if they make him post-June 1st, be $11.7 million. They're not desperate for the space right now, so that means maybe they just keep him. Hey, why not keep him? But I think they look to add some younger guys that they could trust to stay healthier, because that was kind of an issue this year. So you could free a bit amount of cap space with this one, move on from Reader, who they just signed this last offseason. Gardner Minshew did not work out for the Raiders. Obviously, there is a new coach in town. It's Pete Carroll. Maybe he likes Minshew. Maybe he keeps him. I think that organization's just ready to move on. They're ready to find that quarterback for right now and for the future, whether that's one guy or two guys to kind of fill those roles, we will see. But they move on from Minshew, and they can clear a little bit of space, 6.3 with a normal cut, 9.3 with a post-June 1st designation, and I would expect them to move on from Minshew here somewhat soon this offseason. Saints quarterback Derek Carr already said he wasn't interested in taking a pay cut. I don't feel like they'll be able to trade this guy with the contract he has. If they cut him outright right now, they would barely save anything, just over $1 million. Not worth it. The Saints do need space now, so that's a little tough, but I don't know if they want Carr to be their guy long term. If they can save $30 million, I know it's not right today, but post June 1st, that's a lot of money for a quarterback that's declining and has injury concerns. There's going to be a new coach in there for the Saints as well, so it makes a lot of sense to me. So I would expect a post June 1st cut for the Saints on Derek Carr, freeing $30 million, which definitely will help them. I mean, again, not right away, but at some point, it really would help them because they need all the extra cap space they can get. I'm expecting the Colts to release pass rusher Samson Ebukam, who's still a pretty solid pass rusher, but obviously missed this entire year due to an injury. Colts can free $7.5 million. Could decide to keep him, but the way I look at it, he was played a specific role in Gus Bradley's scheme. He runs like a Leo scheme where he needs on one end kind of a hybrid pass rusher that could put his hand in the dirt, stand up, or drop in coverage. So that's where Ebukam kind of came into play. That's where he came into play in that role for the 49ers as well. So they bring in Lou Anarumo, new defensive coordinator. I think they'll view him as maybe a non-fit. Of course it could work, but a non-fit. I think they would rather free that $7.5 million and move on from him. Allen Lazard very, very likely could be on his way out. Even if they keep Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, I think Lazard could be out just because he's not playing that well. He's dropping the ball a bit, and the Jets could free a little bit of money here, $6.6 million now, or if they go with the June 1st route, $11 million. So with him declining and not playing overly Well, at all, I would expect this to happen. I think a pretty obvious one here with Miles Sanders. It feels like we've been talking forever about him possibly getting traded or cut, and I think the time has finally come here with the Panthers moving on from him and clearing $5.2 million. That seems like a very logical, very easy choice for Carolina this offseason. Cowboys could definitely move on from safety Donovan Wilson, who was a pretty good football player for them, mainly under the Dan Quinn era, which was somewhat recently. Just not really working out now. They bring in Eberflus. A lot of cover too in that scheme. I think they'll find safeties that are more fits. Could free $5.3 million, and who knows? Maybe Wilson ends up back with Dan Quinn with the Commanders. Pairing him with Martin, definitely a possibility. And one more for you guys here, and again, we'll have a part 2 with more of the surprise cuts that realistically could happen. But long time, very solid veteran guard Shaq Mason. Obviously up there in age now, declining a little bit. Feel like the Texans kind of want to retool that offensive line. They can move on from him. And it'd have to be a post-June 1st move for this to make a ton of sense. They could free a little bit, just over $2 million, just cutting him outright. That is definitely a possibility as well. But is it worth it in that case? If they make him a post-June 1st move, they free $9.4 million, then they're looking for replacement guards anyways. So I'd look out for him this offseason. But again, a bunch more videos like this, who guys are going to sign, fits, free agents to watch. Got some of those videos already on the channel. More to come. This is my favorite time of the year for our content, covering the NFL offseason with the draft as well, covering the Senior Bowl right now. I have some mock drafts coming out. So join us, like, subscribe to notifications on. It's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.